And welcome to This Week in Security with our roundup of the most important stories of the week affecting the UK security and private and public sector organisations. In the news this week, speeding penalties about to rise by up to 150%. The latest news on terrorism across the UK and Europe. Countering the rise in CEO fraud, which costs UK companies an estimated £32 million. New warnings about a rise of PABX fraud. AirBnB security flaws also exposed property owners to drugs, crime and prostitution. And how to prepare your business for the next probable nuclear war. Late for that all-important business appointment or urgent delivery and tempted to put your foot down? Well, here's a reason to think twice. Penalties for speeding go up by an average of 150%, and you could be stung by fines of up to £2,500. Travel over 30 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone and you'll get 3 penalty points and a fine of between 25% and 75% of your weekly income. And when the new guidelines are brought in on the 24th of April, those caught at driving more than 101 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit could be disqualified for up to 56 days and get a fine of up to 175% of their relevant weekly income. The Sentencing Council said the move to increase penalties aims to ensure there is a clear increase in penalty as the seriousness of offending increases. Louise Ellman, chair of the Commons Transport Committee, welcomed the changed penalties. However, she said, for enforcement to be successful, there must be the likelihood that offenders will be caught and prosecuted, adding that a declining number of dedicated road traffic police officers is a real concern. So, make sure all critical staff in your organisation are made aware of the changes and reduce the risk of them losing their licence and disrupting your business. Now let's take a look at international terrorism. France, unfortunately, was hit again this week with the assassination of a police officer in the heart of Paris on the Champs-Élysées. The gunman himself was shot and identified as on the terror watch list, having previously been jailed for an attempted killing of a police officer. He is apparently one of thousands of suspects in France, underlying the scale of the challenge in monitoring and stopping terrorism. However, the challenge is made far worse when taken into account other extremist groups and individuals in the far right across Europe. But in a new twist, German police have arrested a 28-year-old over the bombing of the Borussia Dortmund football team coach. Turns out that he may well have been motivated by simply making money, speculating on the fall of the football team's share price. Here in the UK, the first jails opened this week to contain violent extremists from all political and religious groups in a belated attempt to curtail the use of jails as a perfect breeding ground for zealots to groom and recruit followers. Now, this week, SEL published a guide for executive management on our LinkedIn group on the tactics and ways to help prevent a growing threat to companies from sophisticated email fraud known as CEO fraud, where the finance department is conned into believing that their CEO is instructing urgent secret transfer of large amounts of funds. These attacks combine in-depth research, often using telephone calls and emails that seem genuine. Last year, the FBI sent an alert that said they'd tracked a 270% rise over the past 3 years across the whole of the US and 79 countries, with an estimated loss of $2.3 billion. With average losses of between $25,000 and $75,000, and in one case, tech firm Ubiquiti lost $46 million. Action Fraud estimates $32 million was lost last year in the UK, and over $1 million has only ever been recovered. Also earlier this year, Action Fraud warned that medical practices were being targeted. The free guide published by SEL in our LinkedIn group is essential reading for all directors and staff involved in accounts payable functions. And we're planning to issue video training guides in the near future. Now, there's a growing threat highlighted by Action Fraud this month that can affect a large number of businesses and organisations, known as PBX fraud. So, what is PBX fraud? Private branch exchanges are telephone systems used by businesses to communicate both internally and externally. Fraudsters target these systems to make calls to premium rate and international numbers. Victims are liable for fraudulent transactions which can cause significant financial harm or even bankruptcy. And exactly how do the fraudsters get access to make this sort of money? Well, Depending on the type of system used, there are a number of ways a hacker may gain access, such as incorrectly configured firewalls, poor security settings, lack of maintenance, as well as the use of default passwords. These allow quick and easy access. And once access is gained, the criminals can exploit inbuilt services such as voicemail, call forwarding, and call diversion to direct calls to a number of their choosing. And this will often be a premium rate or international number set up by the fraudsters in poorly regulated parts of the world like Eastern Europe, Cuba, and Africa. This type of fraud is most likely to occur when organizations are most vulnerable, i.e. when businesses are closed but their telephone systems are not. For example, in the early hours of the morning or over a weekend or public holiday. So how can you prevent this? Well, SCOL recommends visiting the Action Fraud website and implementing 12 simple recommendations. Now, at the start of the week, we took a closer look at the impact of the BBC investigation on the breach of security at AirBnB. The company has developed sophisticated screening of guests, but as has been found out, criminals are now hacking and stealing legitimate IDs. Our own investigation took us to a customer complaint site called Airbnb Hell, and this revealed that ID theft was actually being used to access properties and set up criminal activities, such as drop-off points to deliver drugs or even operate prostitution. If you let properties via Airbnb or any other app, then check out our report and the tips that you can take to further protect your property from criminal use. Now, finally, a deadly game of bluff and brinkmanship between Donald Trump's administration and Kim Il-sung has reached fever pitch last week. It may have cooled down by a small degree, but the situation remains extremely volatile, with no sign of government Chinese pressure affecting Pyongyang. Though the risk of major nuclear war is being discounted by many, even a limited nuclear or non-nuclear war could affect trade and commerce. Unintended consequences might affect UK organisations, from hospitals to the automotive industry. This week, we published a paper on our LinkedIn group that gives some sound advice to organisations on how to do some forward planning, and it should help create resilience against a worst-case scenario. There's also a new SEOL training video on VUCA. VUCA is a strategy that every company or public sector organisation can implement to create better corporate security against a backdrop just like the current crisis in North Korea, and deal with volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity of general conditions and situations. You can find links to it on our LinkedIn group and YouTube channel. So that's all for now, so make sure you're subscribed to SEOL, YouTube, and join our LinkedIn group ahead of our new website launching in June 2017. And online together, we'll make the world a safer place. Bye for now.